Hey everyone, and welcome back. You know I love a good story. And, well, Islamic tradition is absolutely jam-packed with them.
It really is. And some of them, really push the boundaries of what we might consider possible.
Exactly. And that's exactly why we're here today for this deep dive. We're tackling two pretty remarkable events. The splitting of the moon
Ah, yes.
and the night journey and ascension.
Also known as Isra and Mirage.
Right, Isra and Mirage. And these events, I mean, they've captivated imaginations for centuries. And, well, I think for good reason. I mean, we're talking about miracles. A journey to Jerusalem in a single night. And hold on to your hats, folks. An ascent through 7 heavens.
It really is incredible. I mean, just thinking about these events, they kind of straddle the line, don't they, between
Oh,
physical
yeah.
and the spiritual realms.
For sure.
And I think that's part of why they raise so many questions, about the nature of reality, about faith, about the limits of what we can even begin to grasp.
Right. And I think that's what makes them so intriguing. So where do we even begin? I mean, let's unpack this.
Sure.
Let's start with the splitting of the moon.
Okay.
Now, the story goes, the Prophet Muhammad was challenged by, well, some people who weren't really buying what he was teaching.
Skeptics?
Yeah, skeptics. And they demanded a sign, proof.
A sign of his truthfulness.
All right. And, I mean, talk about a sign. The Quran, in Seerah al-Qamar, describes this event.
It says, the hour has drawn near and the moon has split.
I mean, just let those words sink in for a minute. It's powerful. And honestly, it's no wonder it's been debated for centuries.
Yeah.
And the hadith, especially Sahih Bukhari and Sahih Muslim, they go into more detail, describing how the prophet, he just points at the moon and it splits.
Visibly. Into 2 distinct parts.
Right. But could that even actually happen? I mean, is there any science behind this?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, it's a question that's really puzzled scholars for, generations. And I think, most scientists looking at this would say that, based on our current understanding of physics, for a celestial body like the moon to just split like that and then come back together, it's highly improbable.
Okay, so maybe we're not talking about an actual, slicing the moon in half kind of situation.
Right.
Are there, any other theories out there? Ones that try to reconcile this event with science?
Yeah, and there's some fascinating ones out there.
Okay.
So, for example, some scholars have pointed to, possible meteor impacts or maybe some kind of unique lunar phenomena that could have created this, illusion that the moon had split.
Uh-huh.
Remember, have you ever seen those long rills?
It cracks?
Yeah, cracks, on the lunar surface that NASA has observed.
Uh-huh.
Some people think maybe those could be related.
Wait, so are you suggesting that those, cracks could be evidence of something that hit the moon or some event that made it look like it split?
It's a theory, but, it needs a lot more evidence to be considered seriously. Most scientists, they attribute those rillos to, natural stuff happening on the moon.
Yeah.
Geological processes.
Yeah.
Over millions of years, not like a sudden, dramatic event.
So probably not the cracks, but then how do we explain, if this was such a huge event that no other civilizations, from that time documented this?
Yeah.
You'd think if the moon split, it would have been like a global phenomenon, right?
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. And that's a great question. And that's something that people continue to debate. Some folks have suggested that maybe it was a localized phenomenon.
Okay.
That it was only visible from a specific region. Others have proposed that maybe there are accounts out there from other cultures.
Yeah.
Historical accounts.
It's hiding in some archive somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That simply haven't been discovered yet.
I do. Okay, so maybe the jury's still out on whether there's a scientific explanation for the splitting of the moon. But regardless of how we understand it, how we interpret it, this event,
Yeah.
it has a huge significance within Islamic tradition.
It does. Oh, yeah. Absolutely. Theologically, the splitting of the moon, it's seen as a testament to Allah's power. There's no limit to Allah's power.
Yeah.
And it really confirms the Prophet Muhammad's truthfulness.
Right.
And it also acts as a reminder, of the day of judgment.
Okay.
That's coming, urging people to, think about what they're doing.
Yeah.
And to turn to faith.
Right. So it's more than just this big spectacular event. It actually has spiritual and ethical implications.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's move on to the second incredible event.
Oh.
The night journey and ascension.
Isra and Miraj.
Right. Isra and Miraj,
Hmm.
often described as one of the most profound and spiritually significant events in Islamic history.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it all begins with this just incredible journey.
Yeah. The Quran in Surah Al-Isra beautifully describes it. It says, "Glory be to the one who took his servant by night, from the sacred mosque to the farthest mosque, whose surroundings we have blessed to show him some of our signs."
So, hold on. Are we talking about the prophet traveling from Mecca to Jerusalem in one night?
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
I mean, that's a feat in itself.
Right,
But what makes this journey even more extraordinary is that he wasn't, like, traveling by conventional means.
right. According to tradition, the prophet was accompanied by the angel Gabriel,
Okay.
and he was riding upon Barak, a celestial creature described as having the face of a man and the wings of an eagle.
Okay. Wow. Hold on. A winged creature capable of, I don't know, supersonic speed or something?
Yeah, it's really something.
I can see why this story has captivated people for centuries.
Absolutely.
But why Jerusalem? What made Masjid al-Aqsa the destination for this amazing journey?
Well, Masjid al-Aqsa, it's considered the third holiest site in Islam,
Mm.
after the Kaaba in Mecca, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
and the Prophet's mosque in Medina.
Okay, so it's a place steeped in history and sanctity. But the story doesn't end there, does it? This is where the ascension, the mirage, comes in.
Right.
And things get even more, I don't even know how to describe it.
Otherworldly.
Yes,
The
otherworldly.
night journey, the Isra, is just the first part of this whole event. The Miraj, the ascension, takes the prophet beyond the earthly realm into, the celestial spheres.
Right, and this is where we hear about him ascending through the seven heavens.
Yeah, yes.
Right.
Yes.
Each one representing a different, realm of the universe.
Exactly. And in each heaven, he encounters a different prophet from the past.
Okay.
So, in the first heaven, he meets Adam, and then in the second, Jesus and John the Baptist. And it kind of goes on like that until you get to the seventh heaven where he meets Abraham.
It's like a who's who of prophets across time. But this ascent, it doesn't go on forever, right? There's a point where this journey reaches its limit.
Yeah, you're right. It does. The prophet, he eventually reaches Sidrat al-Muntaha. You can think of it like the ultimate boundary. Some describe it as a cosmic tree,
Okay.
whose roots bind all of creation, and its branches reach, the highest heavens. And it's a point beyond which no creation can pass, not even angels.
So reaching the edge of the universe,
Yeah.
the ultimate limit of human understanding. And it's here at this boundary that the prophet has this face-to-face with Allah.
That's right, yes. And it's during this incredible encounter that he receives a pivotal gift for, all of humanity.
The gift of Salah. The 5 daily prayers, talk about a souvenir to bring back from a trip to the edge of the universe.
Right, it's amazing.
But I thought it was 50 daily prayers originally.
You're right, it was, according to Islamic tradition, Allah. He initially commanded 50 prayers, but the prophet, guided by Moses, he interceded, recognizing that, logistically, that's a lot for humans to actually do. So through these series of exchanges, back and forth, it was reduced to 5. But the reward remained the same as if they were doing 50.
So it shows Allah's mercy and understanding, and it also shows the prophet's compassion for people.
Yes.
But it also really sets in stone this idea of prayer being super important in Islam.
Absolutely. Yeah. The Miraj and the gift of Salah, it really underscores that connection with the divine.
Okay.
Of setting aside time, for contemplation, for spiritual nourishment. So we had these 2 incredible events, the splitting of the moon, this public display,
Yeah.
Challenging people to believe, and then this deeply personal spiritual journey of the Miraj. That resulted in this gift for all humankind. But how are they connected? What's the common thread?
Right. What ties these seemingly very different events together?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's one that we're going to explore further as we continue this deep dive.
Okay. Intriguing. Well, why don't we pause here, let our listeners kind of take all this in. It's a lot.
It is.
And we'll be right back to dig deeper into the meaning and the implications of these just remarkable events.
Okay, sounds good.
So stay tuned. Okay, so welcome back. We just explored 2 really, extraordinary events from Islamic tradition. The splitting of the moon and then the Prophet Muhammad's night journey and ascension. But now let's maybe shift gears a little bit and think about why do these stories from, so long ago still kind of resonate with us today?
Well, they offer, I think, a lot of food for thought. you know.
Hmm.
They touch on themes that I think are just deeply relevant to the human experience, no matter what your background is or what you believe.
Right. For example, both these events, they raise these questions about faith and belief.
Yeah.
Like we see this in the different reactions to the splitting of the moon, right? Uh-huh.
Where some people, they witnessed it and they were convinced, but then others, they remained skeptical.
Right. It's a great observation. And I think these stories, they highlight that power of individual perspective and how, like, whatever we already think about things can influence how we understand even the most incredible events. Like, imagine, people witnessing what seems like a miracle but choosing not to believe.
Right.
What does that tell us about faith?
Yeah. It suggests that belief is this, like, deeply personal thing, influenced by so many different factors beyond just seeing something amazing.
Yeah.
And it makes you wonder about the role of doubt
Yeah.
in faith. Is it even possible to have faith without some doubt?
That's a really good question. A lot of theologians and philosophers, they would argue that doubt, it's not the opposite of faith. It's actually, like, part of it, wrestling with doubt. It can actually strengthen your faith.
Okay.
Because it pushes you to, like, really consider these complex questions and to look for a deeper understanding. Yeah, like that saying, the opposite of faith is not doubt, but certainty.
Right, exactly.
Like blind faith without questioning anything, without thinking critically.
Yeah.
That can be really fragile.
Exactly.
But faith that's been tested by doubt, like, it comes out stronger.
Yes. It becomes much more resilient.
Right, okay. These stories, I feel like they challenge us to kind of examine our own sources of knowledge, like our belief systems. Do we just rely on, like, hard evidence and scientific explanations, or can we be open to intuition, to experiences that are, I don't know, harder to explain, to the possibility that there's stuff out there we just don't understand?
Yeah. Like, are we willing to acknowledge the unknown?
Right. It's like we're always trying to find that balance between reason and faith. Logic and intuition, how do we reconcile those things? They seem like opposites.
Yeah, it's a tough question. There's not, like, one easy answer. But I think these stories, they encourage us to approach the world with a sense of curiosity and humility. Just recognizing that we don't have all the answers.
Right.
And to be open to the possibility of, the extraordinary, even if it doesn't quite fit in with what we currently understand about the universe.
It reminds us that we still have so much to learn, that our science, like right now, might not capture the full picture of reality. The Mirage in particular, with the whole journey through the heavens thing, it really highlights this theme of, like, transformation through a journey. It's not just about going somewhere, it's about the interchanges that happen.
Exactly. It's that internal transformation. And I think the Mirage can be seen as this, like, metaphor for all of our spiritual journeys, the challenges we go through, the lessons we learn, those moments of insight, of growth.
Yeah.
All those contribute to our own spiritual development.
And it doesn't have to be a literal journey, right? It can be an inward journey.
Exactly. Of self-discovery. Confronting your fears, finding meaning, purpose.
And that ties into, this whole idea of seeking knowledge, like in the Mirage, right? The prophet, he encounters all these prophets from before, each of them, like, representing different aspects of wisdom, of spiritual insight.
Yeah.
It really emphasizes how important it is to learn from those who came before us, to, like, tap into that collective wisdom of humanity.
Absolutely. It's like each encounter adds another layer of understanding.
Yeah. And it's not just about religion either. It's
Right.
about seeking wisdom wherever you can find it,
Yeah.
Science, philosophy, art, nature.
I agree. And this journey, it ends with that encounter with Allah at the Sidrat al-Muntaha, that ultimate boundary of human understanding.
Right.
And there he receives the gift of Salah, the 5 daily prayers, this practice that connects individuals directly with the divine.
And what's so interesting is that it wasn't just like, boom, here's the rule.
Right.
It involved a conversation.
Yeah.
Some back and forth.
Negotiation.
And ultimately, divine mercy. Reducing the number of prayers from 50 to 5. Like, recognizing our human limitations.
Exactly. It shows that, even in our devotion, we're not expected to be superhuman.
Right.
There's flexibility, understanding, a compassionate approach to spiritual practice.
Like Allah saying, I know you have earthly responsibilities, but make time for me, even if it's just for a little bit each day. Nurture that connection.
Right.
And that connection, through prayer, it can bring comfort, guidance, peace,
Yeah.
even when life is tough.
Yes, absolutely. Whether we take these events literally or see them more symbolically, I think they speak to our human need to find meaning,
Yeah.
to connect to something bigger than ourselves.
Right, like it's pushing us to think beyond our everyday experiences,
Yeah.
to consider that there might be more out there, dimensions beyond what we can see and touch.
And that brings us to another interesting point, the power of stories.
Mhm.
These stories, they've been passed down for generations, and they continue to inspire, to challenge us, to make us think. It's a reminder that even these ancient stories can still be relevant today. They offer wisdom and insights that are, like, timeless.
It's like they're these containers, these vessels,
Yeah.
carrying these big truths across time and cultures. They connect us to something bigger than ourselves, to this history of faith, to these big questions that people have been wrestling with forever.
Exactly. And as we continue to wrestle with those questions, I think we can draw on these stories, for guidance, for inspiration, to feel that sense of connection to something beyond the ordinary.
Welcome back to our deep dive into the splitting of the moon and the night journey and ascension. We've, covered a lot, the historical accounts, possible scientific explanations, and those, deeper spiritual and philosophical themes. But now I want to get to, some questions that come up a lot when we talk about these events.
Yeah, the questions are, always so interesting. They really make us, think critically and consider different perspectives, which is like what we do here on the deep dive.
Exactly. So let's get right to it. How literally should we take these events? I mean, are we supposed to believe that the moon, actually split in half? Or is there, a symbolic interpretation?
Yeah, I mean, that's a question that's been debated for centuries
Yeah.
by scholars and theologians. And, there's no one right answer. Some interpretations really emphasize the literal truth of these events, highlighting the power of Allah and how important it is to, accept miracles as they are described in, the sacred texts.
Right. And others see it more metaphorically.
Exactly, yeah. For some, the splitting of the moon might be like a representation of breaking free from old ways of thinking, shattering of disbelief, and opening to new possibilities. And then the mirage with, the whole ascent through the heavens.
Right.
Could be a metaphor for the soul's journey towards spiritual enlightenment.
So it's not necessarily one or the other. It's more about finding the interpretation that speaks to you, to your understanding and your beliefs.
Right, exactly. And I think one of the beautiful things about, Islamic tradition is that it really encourages critical thinking and personal reflection. There's room for different interpretations. It's up to each person to find the meaning that speaks to their heart.
Yeah, I like that. It reminds me of what you were saying earlier, about doubt, playing a part in strengthening faith.
Yeah.
Maybe questioning and really wrestling with these stories helps us understand them better and, connect with them more deeply.
I think you're right. It's not about blindly accepting. It's about really engaging, asking questions, and trying to find that deeper meaning, and that process can be really enriching.
For sure. Now, here's another question that I've heard. If these events were signs for everyone, why did only a few people see them?
Right.
Wouldn't a global event like the moon splitting, shouldn't it have been, documented by other civilizations all over the world?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's led to a bunch of different interpretations. Some scholars think that these events might have been localized, you could only see them from a certain place. And others think that maybe there are accounts out there, historical records from other cultures that we just haven't found yet.
It's like we're missing some pieces of the puzzle.
Yeah.
But even without those pieces, these stories, they make us think about reality, about what we believe. Take the mirage, for example, with the seven heavens and meeting prophets from the past.
Yeah.
It's such a vivid picture. What can we learn from these details?
I mean, the symbolism in the mirage, it's layers upon layers. The number 7, for instance, it has a really deep meaning in Islamic cosmology. It represents, completeness, perfection. It's associated with the 7 heavens, 7 layers of the earth, even the 7 stages of spiritual development.
So the prophet going through 7 heavens could be a journey through different levels of existence, moving towards spiritual wholeness.
Yeah, that's one interpretation. And meeting those prophets from different traditions, it could represent the universality of spiritual truth.
Okay.
And how connected we all are in our search for something bigger.
That's a really cool way to look at it. It's saying that even though there are different faiths, different paths, there's something that brings us together.
Right.
That search for meaning.
Yeah. And even, the Sutrat al-Muntaha, that place where the prophet's final ascent happens, it's not just a random spot. It symbolizes a boundary,
Hmm.
you know, where what humans can understand kind of stops and the divine starts.
So it's like a doorway, like between the world we know and something beyond.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the fact that the prophet gets the command for Salah there, it shows how connected our spiritual practices are to the divine.
Right.
Salah becomes this bridge between those realms.
Yeah.
It's how we go beyond our limits and connect with something bigger.
It's like a reminder to take time to reflect, to pray, even when life is busy.
Yep.
And that story of how the number of prayers went from 50 to 5, it shows how important compassion and balance are.
It does. It's a beautiful example of like divine mercy meeting human needs. And that message, I think, it resonates with a lot of people, whether they're Muslim or not.
I agree. And I think one of the most powerful things about these stories is how they go beyond culture and religion.
Uh-huh.
They speak to everyone, about faith, about doubt, about searching for something more.
You said it perfectly.
Yeah.
Whether we take them literally or see them as metaphors, these stories have a lot to teach us about believing, about our own unique perspectives, and about the importance of seeking knowledge and understanding.
And I think maybe the most important thing is it's not just about the destination.
Right.
It's about the journey,
Yeah.
the challenges we face, the questions we ask, the doubts, the insights. They all help us grow.
Well said. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to encourage our listeners to keep exploring these stories, to talk about them, think about them, and find what they mean to them.
Because these stories are gifts. They offer wisdom, inspiration, and a sense of wonder for all of us. Thanks for joining us.